What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're going to be previewing Port Adelaide's round 10 clash against the Hawks down in Launceston this Saturday afternoon at 1:15 p.m. It's going to be a big game, 8th versus 11th. Port Adelaide just ahead at the moment in terms of wins, so it's going to be a very close game and a very interesting one. So let's get straight into this preview and how this game will pan out.
He's been able to get the ball back into the corridor, which Hawthorn are looking for.
Dixon, they're away. Now this should be an easy goal to Robbie Gray. He should be able to stroll in here from 35. The dance step gave him the Elvis hips. Runs in, open goal, slams it through.
As always, for the previews, we start with a little bit of opposition watch, and Hawthorn have been pretty good in the last couple of weeks or so, beating a Giants side at the MCG. Well, the Giants never win at the G anyway, so pretty good win by the Hawks, and then unfortunately going down to the Tigers last week by 36 points in a competitive effort, but just couldn't hit the scoreboard. And for Port Adelaide, well, they got the job done against the Suns by 38 points in a very scrappy, wet game of football. For Port, it's a 6-day turnaround. For the Hawks, same 6-day turnaround, both playing on the same day. So Hawthorn will be looking to really right the record straight and get back on track for their season, because it has been a bit of an ebb and flow type season for them. Alistair Clarkson describing them as a middle-of-the-road side, which, you know, for some people it's still hard to accept, considering Hawthorn have been such a barometer in the AFL for the last 10 plus years. So be interesting to see how they pan out, but they do definitely take Launceston like a home game, winning 25 out of the last 28 games. So it's going to be a very hard task for Port Adelaide, who I'm pretty sure this fact is right, but they haven't won down in Launceston since 2007, which with that famous Brett Ebert snap to win the game just before the siren. So it's going to be an interesting game for sure. I've obviously a couple of injury concerns for Hawthorn at the moment. Ben McAvoy doesn't look likely he's going to get up, so that could open the door for Jared Rufford to come back into the side, or will Jonathan Segler take the job solely on his own? And also the favourable son of Port Adelaide is Chad Wingard. He looks he could return after a hamstring injury this weekend against Port, so his old side in Launceston. It's going to be very, very interesting, and I hope he plays, because I'd love to beat him. It's just always nice when you beat a former player, just like we did against North Melbourne, beating Pittard and Polek. So it'll be interesting to see if he does come up. Still very early in the week, but you never know. He could be playing against his old side, which will be very interesting as well. Obviously, it's a Doug Nicholls round this weekend, so every team will be wearing their Aboriginal designed Guernsey. Ours is obviously designed by Sam Powell-Pepper, and it's very nice indeed. He's done a fantastic job, and I think, you know, every time we do seem to play in Doug Nicholls round, we always play the Hawks down on Launceston. Did that last year, didn't get the job done. It was a 3-point loss to Port Adelaide after a very fast start, kicking the first 4 goals of the game. So for Port Adelaide, I think this game is simply another must-win game to go 6-4 and really solidify their spot in the top 8 at this stage of the season, especially with a pretty okay draw coming up before and after the bye. So this game will be very much played on a term of which midfield will play out better. And as we go into the game notes, I think, first of all, Port Adelaide must nullify Luke Bruce. He's been sensational for Hawks, and especially against Port Adelaide, he does kick a fair few goals. So I think if we can nullify him, they might be strained for goals at the moment. They're not kicking a lot, in saying that not a lot of teams are, but our scoreboard, our inside 50 pressure, constantly getting the ball in eventually will open up a lot more scoring opportunities than what Hawthorn will do. A big boost for Port Adelaide this week. I think I've got it on merit that Robbie Gray and Tom Jonas, if they, barring a couple of hurdles they've got to pass, which are very minor coming into training this week, they get through a full week of training. They're playing this weekend against Hawthorn, which will be a massive boost for what is already a young side and injury prone at the moment. So if they come back into the side, that massively boosts our forward stocks with Robbie Gray and helps solidify our defence a bit more. I'll get into the selections a little bit later, but I think if those two are playing, then Port Adelaide stocks levels are just going up even further to win this weekend. And just looking at some stats as well for Port Adelaide, just to reiterate my point that this weekend's game will be a very much midfield-based game. Obviously, Launceston is a bigger ground, so a lot more running capacity. So Port Adelaide will be able to utilise the speed they have across half-back and their clearances that they've been winning. And the number one in the comp at the moment for clearances, Port Adelaide, and Hawthorn are 16th. No wonder Port have so many inside 50s at the moment and continually banging it in there and trying to get a scoring opportunity. They're not hitting the scoreboard, but they're always constantly pressurising the defence of the opposition, which is a very, in itself is a successful stat, but if you're not hitting the scoreboard, it's kind of cancelling itself out. But I think if Port Adelaide do hit the scoreboard quite regularly against Hawthorn, anything over 80 points, I'd probably say Port Adelaide are going to get the job done. But at this stage, you just never know. And the other stat as well I wanted to touch on is both teams are very highest tackling, pressurising sides, so 3rd and 4th respectively. I think that just reiterates my midfield point once again. They're going to be providing a lot of pressure in the middle. So if Port Adelaide are getting the clearances, especially around the stoppages, it's going to be a lot harder for Port considering Hawthorn are such a very defensive tackling side. So if the players like Boak, Rockcliffe, SPP, or whoever else, Atley, even if he's going through there, then Hawthorn are going to have to put the pressure on them because a lot of clearances will be coming into the Hawks' defence. When I say tackling, obviously both teams are very high on the list, but in contrary to that, contested possessions, Port Adelaide are number one in the competition for getting the ball out from the contested area and really providing a lot more possessions than what Hawthorn are, who are currently 16th. So that explains quite a bit about Hawthorn's midfield at the moment. I will say, though, a particular matchup that Port Adelaide and Hawthorn will both be looking at is Boak versus O'Meara, the two in-form midfielders of the competition at the moment. They're just playing fantastic football, and O'Meara, who's been touted as a bad trade and hasn't really lived up to any expectation at this stage, is really proving some of the doubters wrong because he's certainly really pushing his case this year, has been fantastic. While Travis Boak, well, I've said it enough in all my videos, he's just been phenomenal. So it's going to be an interesting battle in there, but I think Port Adelaide's midfield depth just runs a little bit deeper, especially with Robbie Ray coming back into the side as well. Did touch on Hawthorn's injury concerns. We do have another injury concern with Scott Lysette having a little bit of adductor tightness at the moment, and he could possibly miss the game, especially with the 6-day turnaround. It could mean that maybe someone like a Peter Adams does come into the side, or if Port Adelaide just run one short at the moment. It could be the case, especially with it might just be a 1-week injury, but that's touch and go at the moment. I think he'll be assessed during the week, won't do too much, and be basically decided by selection on Thursday. Put a point across you guys at the moment is that Hawthorn, not to be underestimated, like Gold Coast last week. I think we're in a position where Port Adelaide are simply in a very similar position. We're just tracking a little bit nicely. We're playing a bit better football at the moment, and I think if we can beat Hawthorn on the road, wins away are a lot sweeter than sometimes they are at home. And I think playing Hawthorn in Launceston, which is like playing Geelong down in Geelong, it's a very tough task. And if you can overcome that hurdle, we did it against West Coast in Perth. We did it in Melbourne at the MCG. If we can do that this weekend, then we're very much continuing on the right path. And as for Hawthorn's sake, don't want to underestimate them, but I think for them, this is a must-win game for their season. So it's going to be a very fiery clash, and I'm really much looking forward to seeing how it pans out. As for selection, I've gone for 2 changes this weekend. I really feel that Jonas and Gray will get up, so they'll come into the side. Who goes out is a big question. I'm not 100% sure who is changed for this one. I've gone with Motlop for Gray, so Motlop will come out to the side. For me personally, Matthew Broadbent comes out. He just looks a bit slow, and I know he had 22 possessions last week, but he just looks a bit out of touch to me still. If he keeps his spot, that's, he still deserves it. Not like someone deserves to be dropped after last week. I think our defensive unit was just awesome. But if they do drop Broadbent, it'll be for Jonas. They might do like Lena as well, who was a tad quiet last week, but he was 81% efficiency with 16 disposals in the wet last week, so you can't really deny him a chance. And if Lysette goes out, then Peter Adams will come in. So a bit iffy on the changes at the moment. But as for my prediction for the week, I'm tipping Port Adelaide by 17 points. I think we'll get the job done. I think Billy Frampton might have a big afternoon as well with Robbie Gray chipping in. Thank you very much for tuning into this week's preview of Port Adelaide versus Hawthorn. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking of this game. And if you're a Hawks fan, let me know your thoughts on the game from Hawthorn's perspective. We'd love to hear them. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new for plenty more Port Adelaide and AFL content coming your way. Thanks for watching, Port fans. My name's Anthony, and as always, can the pair.